Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today our mission is, well, to get you up to speed on the world of truly anonymous digital currency.
That's right, we're looking at the Zerocash protocol.
And specifically, the cryptographic magic behind it, zk-SNARKs. These really changed the game for digital privacy.
Yeah, fundamentally redefined it. We've got the original papers, the performance data, and we'll dig into how the actual currency, Zcash, handles compliance.
It's quite a story taking something like Bitcoin, built for transparency, and figuring out how to layer in optional verifiable secrecy.
Exactly. So where do we start? Bitcoin, right?
Right. Bitcoin solved that huge problem, digital cash without banks, no double spending. Brilliant.
But it did it using a public ledger, everything recorded, forever.
And that's the catch, isn't it? Transparency is good for trust, maybe, but bad for privacy.
Totally. You use these pseudonyms, these addresses, but analysts can connect the dots on the public blockchain. They can figure out who's sending what to whom, when.
Yeah, transaction graph analysis, it can get pretty revealing.
It can. And that leads straight to a problem with the money itself. Fungibility.
Explain that a bit. Why does tracing history hurt fungibility?
Well, fungibility just means that one unit of money is interchangeable with any other unit of the same value. Like $1 bill is as good as another.
Okay.
But if you can see a coin's history, and maybe that history involves something sketchy.
Someone might not want to accept it.
Exactly. An exchange or a regulator might say, nope, that coin's tainted. Suddenly, not all Bitcoins are equal. Their value depends on their past.
And that breaks the whole idea of money.
Precisely, which is why people started working on privacy solutions pretty early on.
Which brings us to Zerocoin back in 2013, the first real shot at this.
Yeah, it was a really smart idea for its time. It was an extension for Bitcoin using some early zero-knowledge proofs.
Kind of like a decentralized laundry service for coins.
Sort of, yeah. A decentralized mixer trying to break the link between where coins came from and where they ended up.
But the sources suggest it wasn't exactly smooth sailing.
No, not at all. It had some big limitations. Functionally, it only worked with fixed amounts. Like you couldn't send exactly $15.73.
Just fixed denomination, so making change would be a nightmare.
Right. And you couldn't pay another user directly in these private zero coins. But the real killer was performance.
How bad was it?
The proofs, the cryptographic evidence needed for a transaction were huge, over 45 kilobytes.
Wow.
And verifying one took about 450 milliseconds, nearly half a second.
On a blockchain, that's an eternity. Just not practical.
Not scalable at all. Academically interesting, sure, but not something you could build a usable currency on.
Okay, so that sets the scene perfectly. Zerocoin showed the promise, but also the massive hurdles. Our mission now is to understand how the next step, Zerocash, leaped over those hurdles. How did they get from a 450 millisecond clunky mixer to something fast, flexible? A proper decentralized anonymous payment scheme.
The answer lies in one acronym, zk-SNARK.
Right, zk-SNARKs. Let's break that down again. Zero knowledge.
Meaning you prove something is true without revealing the secret information itself. We've covered that before.
Then the SNAR. Succinct, non-interactive arguments of knowledge.
Okay, let's unpack that. Non-interactive is simple enough. The prover just sends the proof. No back and forth needed.
Okay.
Argument of knowledge is key. It means the prover isn't just showing a statement is true. They're arguing cryptographically that they know the secret that makes it true. Like proving you know the private key for a coin you want to spend without showing the key.
Got it. Proving knowledge, not just truth.
Yeah.
Powerful.
But the S, succinct, that's the revolution here.
Why is succinctness such a big deal?
It means the proofs are incredibly small and verifying them is incredibly fast. And crucially, the size and speed are constant. They don't grow even if the computation being proved is really complex.
Constant size. How small are we talking? Compared to Zerocoin's 45 kilobytes.
Zerocash proofs are just 288 bytes.
Wait, bytes? From 45 kilobytes down to 288 bytes?
Yep. That's a reduction of what, over 97%? 97.7% according to the paper?
That's staggering. That's the kind of leap that makes the impossible possible in engineering. What about verification speed? From 450 milliseconds.
Down to under 6 milliseconds. Again, a massive improvement, over 98% faster.
Okay, that's why this works. Suddenly, you have anonymous transactions that are just as efficient, maybe even more efficient than standard Bitcoin ones.
Exactly. It moved from a theoretical curiosity to something practical you could build a real system on.
So the efficiency is there, but how does the system handle actual money operations, splitting payments, merging funds, sending specific amounts while keeping all the values hidden. You still need to prove you're not just making money up, right?
Absolutely. That's managed by the core mechanism in Zerocash called the pour operation.
Pour, like pouring liquid.
Kind of. Think of it like taking some old coins, melting them down in a hidden way, and pouring that value into new, freshly minted coins.
Okay.
The transaction itself hides the source of the value, the old coins, the destination, the new coins, and crucially, the amount being moved.
But the math has to balance.
Yep.
How is that guaranteed anonymously?
Through the zk-SNARK. The SNARK proves mathematically that the total value of the new coins created plus any public value like transaction fees or change sent back to a transparent address exactly equals the total value of the old coins being consumed. It proves value out of value in without revealing any of those actual values.
That's clever. So you can split $100 into $50 and $50 or merge two $20 into a $40, all completely shielded.
Precisely. The SNARK just confirms the arithmetic holds. And to spend an old coin, you also have to prove two other things cryptographically.
Which are?
One, that you know the secret key associated with that specific coin. Two, that the coin actually exists in the big database of all created coins, what they call the Merkle tree of commitments, without revealing which specific coin in that massive tree you're spending.
And that tree can hold a lot of coins, I assume.
Billions upon billions. The paper mentions up to 2 to the power of 64 commitments. The anonymity set is essentially infinite for practical purposes.
So the pour operation plus the zk-SNARK gives you efficiency and flexible anonymous value transfer.
That's the core technical breakthrough.
Now let's look at Zcash, the actual currency built on the Zerocash protocol. They made an interesting design choice. Privacy isn't mandatory.
Right. Zcash is a hybrid system. It gives users a choice via 2 address types.
First, there are T addresses. The T is for transparent.
Exactly. They start with T, and they work just like Bitcoin addresses. All the transaction details, sender, receiver, amount are public on the blockchain.
Okay, standard crypto stuff. And the other type?
Z addresses. Starting with Z, these are the shielded addresses. Funds held here are private.
So if I send from my Z address to your Z address...
The transaction goes on the blockchain, but the sender, recipient, and amount are all encrypted, hidden.
But you can move between these.
Yep. You can shield funds by sending from a T address to a Z address, the amount becomes hidden. Or you can unshield by sending from a Z address to a T address, making the amount public again.
So the user decides the level of privacy for each transaction.
Correct. It's optional privacy, which is a different philosophy than some other privacy coins that aim for privacy by default for everything.
Let's briefly touch on the economics and governance. Zcash seems to follow Bitcoin's lead there.
Largely, yes. Fixed supply of 21 million coins, same halving schedule roughly every 4 years.
But there's something unique about the initial block rewards.
Yeah, the founder's reward for the first 4 years. Miners got 90% of the new coins in each block, but 10% was allocated to fund ongoing development.
Where did that 10% go?
It was split between the Electric Coin Company, or ECC, which is the for-profit entity leading the core development, and the Zcash Foundation, which is an independent, nonprofit, public charity focused on the health of the ecosystem.
Interesting structure. Okay, let's pivot to the big challenge. Regulation. Anonymous digital cash sounds like a regulator's nightmare when thinking about money laundering or terrorist financing.
It's definitely a tension they thought about from day one. The Zcash design goal, according to the sources, was explicitly to balance consumer privacy with compatibility with global AML-CFT standards, like the FATF recommendations.
How do they argue it's compatible if transactions can be hidden?
Their view is that it's more analogous to physical cash. Financial institutions still have obligations, but they don't rely on scraping everyone's public transaction data. They use other established compliance techniques.
Okay, but what about the exchanges, the virtual asset service providers, the VASPs? How do they handle know your customer, KYC and AML, if someone deposits from or withdraws to a shielded Z address?
VASPs can still manage this. They typically give each customer a unique deposit address. Even if the customer sends from a Z address, the VASP knows which internal account received the funds.
I see. So they track the edges where crypto meets fiat or their platform.
Right. But more importantly, the protocol itself includes specific features designed for compliance and selective disclosure without blowing everyone's privacy wide open.
So tools built right into the system for oversight. That's crucial. What are they?
There are 3 main ones. First is the encrypted memo field.
Okay, what's that do?
It's a small data field attached to a transaction. The sender can put information in there like originator and beneficiary details, which helps meet things like the U.S. travel rule for financial institutions.
But it's encrypted.
Yes. Only the sender and receiver, specifically anyone with the right keys for the recipient's address, can decrypt and read the memo. It's not public.
So the compliance data can be there, but shared privately between the relevant parties. Interesting. What's next?
The second tool is the payment disclosure key. This is quite clever.
How does it work?
Either the sender or the receiver of a shielded transaction can generate this specific key. They can then choose to share that key with a third party, say an auditor or law enforcement with a warrant.
And what does that key let the third party see?
It lets them view the details of that specific transaction, the addresses involved, the amount, and the content of the encrypted memo field, but only that one transaction.
So it's like a targeted reveal on demand by one of the participants.
Exactly. It allows for targeted oversight without compromising the general privacy of the network or the user's other transactions. It directly addresses that tension you mentioned earlier, how to comply when required without sacrificing all privacy.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third tool?
That's the viewing key, associated with a specific Z address.
Different from the payment disclosure key.
Yes. If the owner of a Z address shares its viewing key with someone,
like an exchange needing to monitor an account.
Precisely. That third party can then see the details of all incoming and outgoing transactions for that specific Z address. They can't see transactions of other addresses, just the ones involving the address whose viewing key they have.
So it allows ongoing monitoring of a specific shielded account if necessary, again, without revealing everything else on the network.
Correct. It provides granular visibility for compliance or auditing purposes under the control of the address owner.
These built-in mechanisms seem pretty significant. And the fact that major regulated U.S. exchanges, Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini List, and Trade Zcash suggests regulators find this approach acceptable, or at least workable.
It certainly seems that way. The example often cited is the New York Department of Financial Services, the NYDFS. They're known for being very strict.
Right.
They approved Gemini to list Zcash, but only after, quote, a rigorous review of its AML controls, consumer protection aspects, and cybersecurity. Getting that NYDFS green light was a big deal for Zcash's regulatory standing.
Okay, this has been really insightful. We've gone from Bitcoin's transparent ledger, seen the early struggles with Zerocoin's inefficiency,
so the breakthrough of zk-SNARKs and Zerocash.
enabling fast, flexible private payments in Zcash, but with these carefully designed hooks for optional transparency and regulatory compliance.
It really represents a major evolution in thinking about digital cash embedding privacy tech, powerful enough to shield data, but also flexible enough to allow for selective disclosure when needed. zk-SNARKs enable enforcing rules cryptographically.
The network verifies the rules were followed, like value being conserved without needing to see the private data itself.
Exactly.
So let's wrap up with a final thought. The original Zerocash paper mentioned something quite provocative about the power of these zk-SNARKs.
Ah, yeah. They pointed out that the underlying crypto is so flexible, it could potentially enforce almost any policy you can describe efficiently with computation.
And the example they gave.
They suggested you could, theoretically, build a system where a user could prove they paid all the required taxes on their transactions.
Without revealing any details about those transactions. Not the amounts, not who they paid, not even the total tax amount.
Exactly. Just a cryptographic proof saying, yes, tax obligations related to these transactions, whatever they were, have been met according to the rules.
That leads to a fascinating question to leave our listeners with. If this kind of cryptographic proof of compliance becomes possible and reliable,
does it change the game for regulation? Could proofs like these one day reduce, or maybe even replace, the need for the kind of widespread, intrusive financial data collection and surveillance we see today? Something to think about.